Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bang on Sales Show. Today, my guest is Cristina Patranoiu.
That's impressive.
Cristina is a Partner Enablement Training Specialist at RingCentral. She describes herself as being a continuous learner, and she goes the extra mile with a focus on adult learning and enabling others to make sense of what more needs to look like for them. Right now, Cristina is sharing and enhancing her skills within RingCentral's sales enablement team of superheroes as a lead in France. She's always 2 clicks away, and she's happy to lend a hand for coaching, personal development, enablement, and I like this one, child rearing. So we need to talk after this, Cristina.
Absolutely.
So yeah, thanks for coming on. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me, and thanks for reaching out. It's really a pleasure to get to lobby if you want for enablement. Any chance I get, I'm happy to support this little crazy industry of ours.
Brilliant. Good to hear. No, it's good to have you here. So to kick things off, obviously I've given you a modest introduction there, but do you want to tell us about yourself? What are you working on? What's exciting for you at the moment?
Oh, what isn't exciting for me right now? It's so funny because I think in enablement, you always work with the future in mind. So I'm already in July. I don't know where the rest of the planet is, but I'm in July. I'm scheduling trainings that I'm trying to get in before the summer holiday because I live in France. So we're trying to get everything we can in July so we don't have too much for September, because August we close this country and we throw away the key. Not sure you know that happens in France, but it does. I want to hope that happens for all of Europe, but definitely in France. So I am working right now on a couple of development programs for my French team. I'm supporting the UK team. We're doing some really interesting things with channel as well, not just locally in Europe, but all the way with our team that are supporting the business in Manila. There's just trainings and programs all across the board where we're busy. I cannot lie. It does not feel like it's ever going to stop. And it's something, if you will ever speak to anybody else in RingCentral, they will tell you time passes much faster inside. I don't know how, but I'm here for 1.5 years and I feel at least 5 years in. Like, I feel like I know so many things that I would have only gotten like 5 years worth of time anywhere else. It's a crazy, crazy rhythm.
You're saying this with a smile on your face, so I guess you're enjoying at least some of it.
I'm enjoying most of it. I do have a fantastic team. I won't lie. And the teams we get to work with and our stakeholders, I absolutely do love the culture we got to build inside this company. And it's probably my main motivator waking up in the morning, that I get to do this with the people I get to do it with and learn from them and learn with them. Maybe, I mean, it's probably the context in which we also met in Amsterdam for the conference 2 weeks ago. It's an industry that's expanding, and I'm also trying to expand my network and reach out to people that I can learn from, because I think in a bubble you cannot get too much out of yourself and you're just going to drive yourself crazy. But the more you reach out and the more you expand that network, the better you have a chance of not making the same mistakes and learning from the things others have done and doing it better when it comes to you putting it into practice. So yeah, I think it's an industry that will always keep me on my toes when it comes to learning and doing things better and improving life for others. Because at least the way I do what I do, I try to really be the bridge connecting sales with everything else that's happening in the business. And I think I had this talk with Alan in my team. I was telling him, I'm trying to be the glue. It's so hard to be the glue and keep everything together, but like, still do it in a way that nobody can tell that you're there and you're doing a fine job. And I think that's one of the big issues with enablement nowadays. You still have to prove your worth and show how you touch revenue and, have a seat at the table. But at the same time, everything you're doing is kind of in the background. And if it's well done, they shouldn't even be able to tell you're there. But then you want to be there and you want to be at that table and you want them to know that you've done it. So yeah, it's this very blurred line between being humble but staying in the spotlight, or not staying in the spotlight by pushing them in the spotlight. It's it's a roller coaster.
This this is what I tell my wife. It's if I do the housework, if I clean, you don't notice because the place is tidy, but it's you notice if I don't do it, right? So yeah,
yes, it's a matter of where do you want to position yourself.
exactly.
But actually, that's a very good argument, and it's exactly like that. You might not notice at first if you don't have enablement, but if you don't, oh my God, it's going to be such a messy house.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I'm glad you mentioned the Enablement Summit, because you were on a panel there of speakers, and one of the things that you mentioned was around driving adoption, sales adoption of learning content. Perhaps we could touch on that a little bit, particularly this idea of traditional LMS learning versus a more modern approach. Yeah, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but maybe we could.
Absolutely.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
So I think historically, and it might be just my experience, I'm very sure there are a lot of people who have seen different things in different countries. Learning used to be done in a very controlled environment. We go to the classroom, we teach them something, we send the survey, we get the feedback, we're done. We don't follow up, we don't care what happens. As technology progressed, we managed to record our trainings or do them online. Be able to store all of that is what created the current LMS systems that are mostly just repositories for you dumping content inside, giving it a fun name, and maybe having a certification or a badge for the people that have attended it. That's kind of how we've done it in some of my previous roles, because most of enablement historically came from learning and development. There were the university teams, the training teams that companies had, that eventually, because capitalism pushes us in very fun directions, needed to position itself as best as it could to the part of the business that made more sense to help. And it does not make sense to train everyone everywhere all at once. It makes much more sense to position yourself to the people who need most of the help. And the people who need most of the help are the people who bring in the revenue. And that's going to be your sales team. So obviously, depending on industry, depending on the sectors, depending on the vertical you're in, that's going to look a little bit different for all of them. Now, in my case, I work in cloud. I've been in cloud for the last 7 to 8 years. It's a very fast-paced environment. Sellers are very knowledgeable, but also sort of very resistant to you teaching them anything new, because it's an industry that, is very competitive. They do bring a lot of expertise to the table. They like, to some extent, this idea of, I know everything, I'm the expert, I'm the best one at doing this. So you're always trying to balance this. How much content do I give them? What do I teach them? What do they know? How can I leverage what they know? And when it comes to the content we create, we do have a learning management system. I like the idea of a learning management system if it helps you create content that you can get your learners to engage with. And luckily enough, ours does do that right now. But it's really our internal strategy as enablers to do it. It would be very, very easy to just take a training, record it, upload it, ask people who didn't attend to go check it out. And that would be kind of the end of it. Engagement is constantly a discussion we have in the team. And the way we kind of addressed it in the last year or so was, okay, let's create exercises and get them to engage with the content. We don't just put up a training and we check how many people have viewed it and for how long, and left it in an open tab somewhere. We actually give them exercises at the end of it. Now that you've watched this new feature that we've launched, create a pitch for a prospect. You're going to get that assessed. We're going to have the sales enablement coach you on some of the things you've done, or we're going to leverage some of the great pitches we see and create best practices for pitching this type of innovation we've added. There are a lot of creative solutions out there, but you really do need a team to stay on top of it, to coordinate everything, to engage with the sellers, to ask them what they need, to make sure that they're engaging with the content. I don't know that you can do it any other way. I don't know that the old ways of just creating a training, having a deck, dumping it somewhere and hoping that people go and look at it works anymore. I don't think in today's world where our attention span is 3 seconds and then we scroll, doing something that is 45 minutes to 1 hour and a half of video content that you're supposed to look at, I just don't see that being effective at all.
And on that, is there anything else that you're doing to really make it engaging, to make it relevant for sales? Because like you say, some of them will be going into it with the mindset of like, oh, this is mandatory, I have to do this, it's a necessary evil. But is there a transformation, would you say, in your work of actually making it something that they want to do and they see the value of?
I mean, there's always that tension, and to some extent I love leaning into it. You know, there's always going to be a conflict between what you want to push as training to sales and what sales wants to take and run with. Yeah. I would say the minute I knew we're doing a good job was when I started having people reaching out to me and asking me, hey, there was that video you guys have done. There was that bite-sized thing where you were teaching us how to, you know, work better in LinkedIn, or how to use Sales Navigator in this way or that way, or there were some tips and tricks. I think my first 6 months in RingCentral, I did not have people reach out to me. Not for France, not in general, like they wouldn't come and knock on my door asking for things. Once we started mixing things up and delivering content that filled in the gaps for the things we've noticed that they need, I started getting those knocks on the door and I had people reaching out. So that's how I know it works. We do have data to support it as well. But to me personally, like as a human individual that does this job and needs to be satisfied with the results of it, people reaching out to me and me noticing that there's potential for growth because they don't know how to do this or that, that's what tells me that this is needed and that what we're doing works, because there's still so much more to improve and to do better at.
So you mentioned data there, which is a great segue. So I see the importance of data as having 2 kind of key areas. There's probably more, but it's for you to be able to demonstrate the value of what you're doing, right? As an individual, as a team. And then obviously from that, it's decisions going forward based on data. So I'm kind of answering my own question there, but you know, what's your take on that? Because I know you are quite big on the numbers.
So we are quite big on numbers because I don't think you can do it without the numbers nowadays. Mind you, it does not mean it's my favorite thing to do. I started my career as an analyst. I don't know that once I started into training, I thought that I'm going to end up doing reporting and looking at the numbers and trying to correlate what does that mean. How will it look in 3 months? How can we link the opportunities? How can we link the win rate to the closing cycle, to everything else we're doing? We do need data and we do use data. We are lucky enough, at least in my team, to have Ben Burton, who's running enablement internationally, who is a bit of a math genius. So he will know the efficiency of our training even without running the numbers. Like, if we don't do this training, this is how much business we're going to lose. It's going to affect 30% of next quarter. We need to run this. Whatever we're launching with Microsoft Teams needs to be the main focus. Like, we do have somebody who's extremely good at strategy and will be able to link those numbers, even if those numbers haven't even come up of our Salesforce or our LMS as data yet. So absolutely, if you guys can get the strategy whiz kid, go for that. Get somebody who's really good with the numbers. We were super lucky this last, I want to say 3 months, but it may be since February, we got to have an intern who is also exceptional with data, and he's helped us tremendously, automating the Excels, looking at the numbers, correlating the trainings, not just for direct, but also for partners. So we are looking at pretty much anything that can be tracked in order to prove our relevance to the revenue organization in RingCentral. And I generally think it's funny because it's a bit like your metaphor with you're going to notice when it's not clean. It's kind of like that. Yes, numbers will tell you when enablement is done well, will tell you what enablement is still lagging. It will tell you when programs are run efficiently or when they're not. But at the end of the day, how fast will you notice the mess once you don't have enablement? And again, it might be me running on my gut with this, but I'm absolutely a big fan of people reaching out to me and knowing that we're needed, because we actually make people's lives easier, because they come to us, to the enablement team, as a one-stop hub for the information for how do I do this? What did that mean in that document that I need to fill? Where are the latest, I don't know, decks for pitching? How do I find this information? Data is the future. Realistically, we're not going to escape running the numbers and looking at everything through that. A big part of my job recently has been exactly that, where we're quantifying everything, we're looking at the trainings, we're sending badges and certificates of completion for the people that are really participating and really engaging. But the beauty of it is, once you have the data, you can also find better strategies of improving on the numbers. You can find champions. You can see people that participate in all of this and who can become your champions of enablement. And you can try to scale what you do as a small team, because you will generally find small teams of enablers taking care of hundreds of people in sales organizations. So you need your champions. You need your people who can evangelize what you do and who can go out there and tell people, no, don't do this by yourself. You have help. You have the enablement guys who can help you. And we can create better programs and better trainings and better ways of helping them. The whole point of it is being in contact with your organizations and your stakeholders and really knowing what they need. The easiest way to correlate data with revenue is actually figuring out what the strategy is for your company, for your stakeholders, for your directors, are AVPs, whatever title of revenue you're working with, and link that to the exact numbers you're seeing for the last quarter. What was going down? What was not working? If engagement is not working, you see nobody's taking your trainings and nobody's uploading the pitch and nobody's doing the exercise at the end of the training, maybe you're going in a direction that's not aligned with the strategy. What are we trying to do? Sell more for the sake of selling more? No, we're trying to put a solution on the market to help some people have an easier time communicating and collaborating inside their business. How do we do that? We listen to them. Okay, are our sellers listening enough? Are they good at listening to what's being told to them? I don't know. How do we find that out? Well, let's figure out what could help them do that. How do we practice listening? How do we teach them how to do that? Are we listening to them enough to know maybe what's not working? So yes, it's definitely a great foundation to improve on what you do. But in my human heart, I still hope it's not going to be the only thing that determines success, because it shouldn't be. Like, we're still human, and until AI takes over the world, which might be sooner than we want, we should still really know how to listen to each other and to just help each other out. That's the whole point of enablement. We're just here to make sales lives easier. Just let us. I'm talking to you because I know you're in sales.
No, this is all gold. Really good stuff. You've kind of, I think you've partly already answered my next question, but do you have any advice for, I guess, either smaller, let's say mid-market organizations, or maybe slightly less mature, less developed sales enablement teams? Because as we say, sometimes the house is a little bit messy and we don't quite realize. And, you know, there's certain, again, you've touched on some of this, but there's certain metrics, certain things.
I think when the house is messy, just to continue on this metaphoric path, you know, I mean, leaders always know. If they're good leaders at what they do, and if they come with enough experience in any industry, you can tell. We generally in RingCentral, when you start, I think there's this expectation, I'm pretty sure everywhere, they will kind of give you the first 3 months to understand the waters you're in, what's happening, how does it look like. If you come with enough experience and if you're willing, like you're open enough to learn and to talk to people and to really understand what's happening around you, you will very fast figure out how big the mess is. And it's always messy. Most of the companies we work for in technology have grown so fast, especially through the pandemic. They've expanded at a rate that's just not sustainable, hiring everywhere, having you don't even need a strategy when everything is working, right? Like you're like, no, it's working, let's hire, let's get people, let's get more marketing, let's get more people supporting this, let's get more sellers because everybody wants what we have to sell. Awesome. But at some point, the mess will be obvious. And the more experience you bring to the table to try and clean it up, the easier it will be on the long run. Because that mess will eventually become this very heavy burden that you keep carrying with you, and you're trying to make it to the top of the mountain, but you're carrying so much weight that it's just, it's pulling you down rather than helping you get up. And I do not believe that the mess can be ignored. I think that's pretty much my advice. If we're talking about a small organization that doesn't yet have enablement, hire one person that's on top of that. Do more with less. It's really where we are right now. Maybe in the pandemic, we needed to do more with more because we could hire and money was cheap and everybody could borrow and everybody did. But we are in the do more with less. And you need to link your strategy with what you have going for you. If your sales team is doing good, give them a crutch to help them do better. Give them somebody who can glue them together with everything else. Give them somebody that can shield them from getting too much emails, too much information, too many trainings. Give them someone that can create a framework around all of that and can be, stop. We're not going to do this training for sales for half an hour because this can be an email. Talk to me, explain to me what's happening, and I'm going to digest this for them and bird feed it to them. Like, I'm going to chew it and spit it up the way they need to know it. Sales needs help, and sales doesn't need just product help, and it doesn't need just let me teach you how to use this tool because now we have 10,000 new tools that all do different things and they can help you do a better job. Sales really needs the hand-holding of support from the organization. And I believe, biased as it might be, that having somebody who does this role of enablement is the best way to show the respect you have for your sales organization. It's giving them somebody that can coach them, can get them to rely on their own strengths and build on the experiences they've had, and look inward for resources that they can bring to the table rather than throw more training at them and find new methodologies to implement. Yes, absolutely, you can always learn new things. But the beauty of today's society is that we've discovered coaching some 60 years ago, and we're now coming to the appreciation of, oh, I had everything I needed all along. I just needed a little bit of help structuring it and figuring out small goals and a discipline that I can work around the processes I want to improve, and just do that. And I won't lie, coaching as a culture, I don't think it's a very European thing yet. I'm noticing it's getting there. I know in the UK it's a big discussion. I'm hoping you in Alevo you get a lot of that. I know your tool actually helps with it. It's definitely something that's coming. I mean, I absolutely see the potential in this. It's more a change of mentality and getting sales and maybe leadership in sales to accept the vulnerability of saying we need help. So it would be, I think if I were to summarize the two, it's respect your sales team by helping them, give them someone that can work just for them, because that's what enablement does. We work for sales, yes, with support from the leadership, but if you do enablement right, you do it for sales. I don't do my job thinking about the revenue that we're going to get at the end of the quarter. I do my job thinking, if I do everything right and the team has everything they need, they will perform better than they did last quarter. So I don't think about the end. I just think about what can I do better today, and just trust them that they will deliver at the end. And yeah, the second one would be ask for that help. As managers, as people leading organizations, admit when you need help. This idea that in business and in sales you need to be the best and the expert and the know-it-all of everything. I mean, I don't think it sits well with our generation of millennials nowadays. I don't think they do that. I think this is the exact generation that is asking for help and is vulnerable and is talking about everything. If anything, they're making everything an issue more than it has to be. But we should do that. We don't need to work 80 hours a week. We need to work smart. And if we can do it in 4 days a week, let's do it in 4 days a week and help each other. But we can only do it together with help.
Yeah.
By yourself, I think that's really the recipe for disaster.
Brilliant. Now, that's really good stuff, Cristina. That's a great note to end on as well. No, thank you for that. So where can people find you? Where can they connect with you?
Oh, people can always find me on LinkedIn. I do say this, because I think you have the Allego tries to do everything in 3 steps. I used to sign my emails like that. I used to say I'm 2 clicks away, because aren't we all 2 clicks away nowadays? Like, it's literally go to LinkedIn, write Cristina, because Patranoiu you will not know how to write. But you can always find me. If you ever have any questions, anything that I can do to help you through your career in sales or enablement or training or with coaching, because I happen to also be a coach, I'm more than happy to assist with any of that. I have resources. I'm very keen on personal development and helping other people reach their potential. And generally, it's funny because I think you introduced me with what more needs to look like for them. I honestly think that's the motivation for my work. I just want people to do more with less, as it happens, but find out what that means to them. For some people, it might be exactly that, working 4 days instead of 5, doing all the work they need to in 4 days. And we live in a world where flexibility makes it possible. You can work 4 days a week. You can work from anywhere. You can pretty much set your own goals and achieve them. You just really need to ask for that help. And 2 clicks away. Shoot.
So 2 clicks, speak to Cristina. I'm pumped after this conversation, I have to say. So yeah, give her a shout, and yeah, she'll probably do the same for you. But no, thanks so much for coming on. Hopefully
Thank you so much, Mark. This was a pleasure.
Thanks, Cristina. Bye-bye.